The Avengers has been out on DVD and Blu-ray for about a month. That means it's time to take a critical look at the box office smash hit. Whoa. Calm down. Seriously, I'm as much of a fan of this movie as you are. Come on, stop it. I'm not gonna rip this movie to shreds or do anything negative to it. I just want to take a look at it scene by scene through our movie night analysis. Now that just hurts, just saying mean things like that.
I review movie previews.
What's up, good movie lovers, and welcome to the Avengers Movie Night. It was arguably the most anticipated movie of 2012 and turned into the biggest box office hit. With its availability now for viewing at home, it's time to take a look at everything that worked and try to figure out why it did. And even possibly those small, minor examples of when it didn't work. Everyone okay? Alright, if you haven't listened to a movie night before, it's basically a feature-length Critic's audio commentary track. You on your end have a copy of the film. I'll be marking the time code of the film as I progress through this track so that we can keep in sync. Generally, I do try to stick to the scene that we're watching in terms of the analysis, but sometimes ideas start to grow, notions start to flourish, and I like to follow those through until they're complete. So there will be times when 10 minutes goes by and I haven't talked about exactly what's happened. Don't worry, the whole point of the commentary is to be inspired by what's happening on screen and to explore a lot of ideas from the behind-the-scenes filmmaking to the on-the-screen results. There will be moments of silence during the commentary, lasting possibly from 10 to 30 to 60 seconds. Don't worry, there's nothing wrong with the audio, it's just me taking a moment to gather my thoughts. So in just a moment, I'm going to provide a countdown as to when to start this commentary track and your movie, but right now you should have the film paused. Once the movie's over and the commentary finishes, let's meet up afterwards for some closing thoughts. For now, let's get comfortable and get ready to take a journey through The Avengers in 3, 2, 1. This is my favorite part of watching any kind of Marvel film. The Marvel title sequence with the flipping comic books. Really cool idea, very well done. We go right into the teasing imagery, the blue fluid magical imagery of the Tesseract. The storyline continues from Captain America, which will be one little nitpicky question to ask in a moment regarding something that happened in that movie and wasn't carried over here. But first we get some voiceover from a mysterious opponent that we don't really get introduced to too much. We don't really get this guy's backstory. He's referred to as the Other in the credits, and he's talking to someone mysteriously off screen, kind of in a Darth Vader Empire Strikes Back hologram to the Emperor kind of way, but we don't see the Emperor image here. At the end of the film, we are going to learn that it is Thanos. There's a very light theme here that talks about how humans want to be servants. Humans can't handle freedom, and someone needs to rule them. So the Other is telling Thanos that Loki will be their warrior to take over Earth and retrieve the Tesseract. And by Loki bringing it to the Other can give it to Thanos. They will rule the universe, and Loki will rule Earth. It ties in with Loki's character theme, his journey. At the end of Thor, he did have a character change in that at the end Thor offered his hand to save Loki as he was kind of hanging off and about to go into space to fall to his presumable doom. Thor offers his hand in brotherhood. Even though they aren't brothers by blood, they can be by choice. Loki decides, much like Lucifer, that it is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven, so he does not choose Thor's offer, and for the moment we think he's dead. Here it ends up that the Other and his Chitauri, which kind of sounds like a Star Trek alien race, have saved him, and so now he feels an obligation to them, or he's just using them. Loki is just a very distorted character. He is power hungry and has a lot of issues going on, abandonment, inferiority complex. So he's trying to compensate with a superiority complex. Very straightforward, very strong in his determination for what he wants. There's a lot to talk about with the Avengers, and again, I'm not here to try to say there are problems with it. It's a fun movie, it's a great film. It was the most joyous experience in the theater in 2012. It's been a while since there's been this much cheering and just pure euphoria as a movie fan, as a comic book fan. A very rare occurrence where a series of films over a number of years are building towards this crescendo, this climax of a film that's bringing everything together. Marvel has pioneered this, and I'm kind of wondering if studios are going to take note and continue to do something like this with their potential franchises and crossovers and get more comic booky. Will movies become more like comic books, and that it'll be issue to issue, movie to movie, everything will be connected, crossed over, built up? Will it become more serialized? Will movies basically become like TV shows, but big, huge, budgeted, blockbuster, epic event TV shows? 4 minutes, 38 seconds, the Tesseract is acting up, and it opens a portal. Loki is going to emerge. There really isn't a lot of explanation in terms of the connection between Thor and this. If Loki falls off into space, presumably he's saved by these Chitauri, and somehow he's able to access the power of the Tesseract. I guess they gave it to him, and now he's homing in on its signal, and he comes to Earth. For some reason, the Chitauri can't invade Earth. That's a question I have. Why can't the Chitauri and the Other and Thanos just kind of show up and say, hey, we're going to take it from you? Because the humans don't really know what they're doing with it. They have these awesome forces, these spinal dragon armored creatures and all this. Joss Whedon calls the larger creatures towards the end the Leviathans. So why can't they just invade Earth? Why do we need Loki? Now notice how super action-packed this opening sequence is here. 5 minutes, 57 seconds. Loki shows up underground, kind of NASA military base that's trying to harness the powers of the Tesseract here. And he just starts kicking ass, something he did not do in Thor. He's much more of a silver-tongued, devilish kind of liar. He tricks you into following him. He seduces you with his words and his tone. But here he's much more of a physical threat. Let's talk about Hawkeye. Hawkeye has been disrespected in terms of his Avenger time to shine with his own film. He does not have his own movie. He was briefly in Thor. Just when it seems like we're starting off with him here at the base protecting, he's in his nest, and it seems like we're going to get to know him, he is turned into a bad guy. And he's basically zombified, and his character is taken away. Now, this is understandable because there are so many characters. You're bringing together all these characters, all these movies, all of this backstory, the knowledge. There's a lot to juggle here. So the Avengers is not the time to make it the Hawkeye movie or the Hawkeye backstory. It's a practical decision, but in a lot of ways it's a little bit of a cheat. Very much so like Spider-Man 3, when Harry was knocked unconscious, and when he woke up, he was basically the person he was in Spider-Man 1. So any potential conflict, any drama that he had to offer for the third Spider-Man was put on pause until the third act. Just when it seems like the movie's going to be about Peter and Harry coming to terms with all of their issues, Sam Raimi and company realized that there are just too many characters here. Venom, Sandman, Mary Jane, Peter Parker, Gwen, everyone is just coming together. There are a lot of stories crossing over, clashing into each other. Is there really time to deal with Harry? Not really, so they decided to basically put him on pause, put him in a coma, wake him up, make him Peter's friend, so by making him a friend, there is no more drama coming from that character until the very end, when he remembers what happened, and then he becomes a threat again, and then that film continues. So Hawkeye is basically a zombie, a henchman of Loki. Loki is a henchman of the other, and the other is a henchman of Thanos. That's kind of the hierarchy. So we have Emperor, Darth Vader, and then Stormtroopers. Another action sequence here as the escape from the underground base. Tunnels are always fun. Eight minutes, 51 seconds. The chase, the Tesseract power, taking out the cars, Loki with his spear. It's a fun sequence. It just gets us gearing up and going. This is a film that was so anticipated, one of the most anticipated films ever. And to make us wait to see characters in action would equal a feeling of unease. Kind of like, let's just get this going. We, the audience, have responsibility in terms of the lightness of the Avengers. The Avengers, and a lot of films this past summer, a lot of big budgeted mainstream Hollywood StoryCorps films of the last 2 or 3 years are very light when it comes to the theme. The theme being character change throughout the story. At the beginning of a movie, characters are a certain way. At the end, they have changed, they've learned something, they've gained some kind of level of new consciousness. The stress and the events of the conflict they've just faced, fought through, and persevered over have made them into someone different. That really doesn't happen nowadays in the bigger movies, in the mainstream movies. It's much more independent, straight to Netflix, DVD films that focus on that. But then, on the other hand, those films do not have the huge genre set pieces that we're getting right now at 10 minutes, 20 seconds. As the characters take off in the helicopter, they see the base collapsing in on itself in this nice, huge scoping shot. This isn't 3D, and if you listen to the commentary track, that thankfully Joss Whedon has decided to reveal some insights regarding the Avengers. He's also done a commentary track on Cabin in the Woods. Note to Christopher Nolan, please share your movie genius with your fellow cinematic nerds. We want to know what it took to make the Batman saga. Please do some commentary tracks on that. Joss Whedon isn't opposed to that. He's not shy about revealing what worked and what didn't, and all the factors that went into making a huge movie like this. So shooting in 3D was definitely an issue. You want to have that be a payoff. You want to have some moments that are 3D worthy. We have Coulson talking with Fury. The Tesseract is gone. We're at war. What do we do? Now it's time to assemble the Avengers. Nice little moving shot there as we focus on Nick Fury. The Avengers title comes up. The music is solid. Alan Silvestri's been around a long time, done a lot of great films, but I kind of want to say that it's not the most memorable score ever. It's a score that does what it needs to do for the film. It captures the emotion well enough, but it's not a score that you leave humming. You leave the movie theater and you're kind of humming it, or it's like locked in your memory. Obviously, Star Wars is a film where the score just sticks with you. Think of other movies that when you remember the title, when you think of the character, at the same time you remember their sort of score theme. In the best examples, the score reflects the character and it's tied in together. I know for me, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, RoboCop, Braveheart, Batman, of course. All they need to do in the trailers for Batman is just play a little bit of that powerful Hans Zimmer score, and we know what's going on. Great scene here. It's quiet, 12 minutes, 50 seconds as we get Black Widow with a kind of cliche Russian criminal element. And one of the great things about Black Widow, she operates much in the way that Joss Whedon operates when he writes, in that on the surface, it appears that things are going to be as expected. Things are going to be cliche. Here, Black Widow is playing weak. She is allowing others to think that they know what's going on, that they're in charge. And then at the end, she turns things around, pulls the twist out, flips every expectation on its head, and it turns out she's the one that was in control the entire time. And much like Whedon throughout this movie, establishing cliches, making us think that we're safe in terms of this is what we expect, this is what's going to happen in this film, and then all of a sudden it's a nice destruction of that cliche. And here's a great moment, 13 minutes, 57 seconds. They get a phone call, and Black Widow's being called into duty by Coulson. And here we get the nice comedic twist. Joss is always great about making things funny, not overly funny, but adding some humor so that things stay fun. So she says, hold on a moment, and then she gets to ass-kicking. And every character, when they're introduced, they need to have their moment to shine so that we know that they're capable. That's funny. 14 minutes, 30 seconds. The cut to Coulson as if he's kind of listening to Muzak, and she takes care of business. It's a fun scene. Gets the heels, takes off. So we have the connection of her and Barton, and then there's a shot of them on the screen here, 15 minutes, 7 seconds, showing them in action so they have some kind of history. This is the way to reveal stuff about Hawkeye without having Hawkeye do it himself. You get a character that cares about another character to reveal their emotions about that person. Think about it in our own lives when we're talking with someone and we are talking about a close friend or a hated enemy. The emotions that we are sharing are usually the ones that will be picked up upon by the person listening. So if we talk about our friend in a very favorable way, in a loving way, the person listening will have that opinion of our friend or family member. On the other hand, if we're just kind of ripping them and saying horrible things, that person listening will have that kind of reaction to them. It's all about emotional communication from the character. So the way Black Widow talks about Hawkeye is the way that we feel about Hawkeye, because she is anchoring our emotions in Hawkeye through her perceptions. It's a nice way to do it. That way Hawkeye, when he's in a zombie state, we can feel some empathy for him, feel a connection with him, even though he's not really that active of a character, because there's too many people in this movie. There's 6 main characters, basically. Another scene with Black Widow, this time Bruce Banner's in the house, not played by Edward Norton, not played by Eric Bana, but played by Mark Ruffalo. He does a pretty good job here. Bruce Banner, the Hulk, is a very straightforward character, and in every incarnation of that superhero, we pretty much just want Hulk smash. And it would be great if there was a little more exploration in terms of what that's about, because the Hulk is a personification of anger. So why not have a little more character exploration of that? Hulk comes out, things get broken. And let's just address right now, one of the nitpicky aspects of the logic here is going to be that at the end, the big payoff for the Hulk is that Bruce Banner can control his anger and is able, in the Hulk state, to understand other people and almost rationally control his strength. When they're fighting the Chitauri in the climactic battle, Bruce Banner says his secret is that he is always angry, and then he willingly, in a controlled manner, turns into the Hulk. That journey from here, where we are at 18 minutes 19 seconds, as he has gone without an incident for over a year, makes it seem like he's just on the verge of turning. There's no indication that he's found a way to control it. So where is the moment when he finally gains control, when he reveals that? Things happen so fast in this movie, and it's just constant action and story movement forward that we don't really pick up upon it till the end. By pointing it out is a kind of a way to say, oh, you're ruining the fun of it, just go along for the ride and don't think about that. That's a fair opinion to have, absolutely. It all depends what we want from this film. If this film is an opportunity to deepen each of these characters, because we are going to continue to go on a journey with them, there should be some kind of justification for that, because it's a very cool twist on the expectations of this character. "19 minutes 25 seconds, we have our X-Files moment as the room with the shadowy men on the HD screens talking to Fury gather around. The shadow-type government that makes all the big decisions in the world is giving Fury orders, but because it's Sam Jackson, he kind of brings along that I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, I'll do what I want kind of thing. And in the end, these rulers are going to make a tough choice to send a missile into the city and destroy it where the aliens are invading, and Fury's not going to be really happy about that. So these characters have a function. We see them about 2 or 3 times. Every time we see them, it's different. There's continued momentum and progress in terms of their character states. So they have a quick journey. They don't really learn anything or change, but they have an agenda, they have an objective, and they're always pursuing that. In a screenplay, in dramatic structure, it's all about establishing character and objective. There are certain elements in an Act 1 we need to have. So we've got main character pursuing an objective with an opponent to be in their way. The theme is revealed through a window character that they have. Establishing a theme means giving the main character adjectives. Who are they at the beginning? Where do we as a writer want them to be at the end of the film? So describe them at the end, describe them at the beginning, and then through drama and stress, reveal how they slowly move away from who they were at the start towards the person they're going to be. The character structure elements of Act 1 are rounded out with stakes. We need to know why we care and why the character is so enthusiastic about pursuing an objective. What is the thing that's going to happen if they do not get their objective? Those are the stakes. And then, of course, genre. What's the genre of the film? Here it's been established right away with the opening sequence, all the action, superpowers, superheroes. We know what we're expecting and we're getting it. Once all of that is in place and the characters are pursuing objective, we are into Act 2. And Act 2 is all about conflict. Characters take steps towards getting what they want, and the opponents take actions towards getting what they want. Usually it's in conflict with the main character's desire, so both forces are opposed to each other. That takes place all the way through Act 2. The main character along the way keeps changing the way that they pursue their objective, equaling beats and sequences. Beats are changes in the way that the main character pursues objective. Then the sequences are made up of the scenes that result from those beats. And that continues all the way till Act 3, when it seems that the main character will not achieve what they are seeking, and that the opponent is about to achieve their objective. It's a lost point, it's a low point, it's that moment in the movie where the music gets really dramatic and the characters are stressed and sad, about to give up, about to die, and all hope is lost, but they find the willpower, they find the strength, the determination to one more time, gather up, find a new strategy, and take out the opponent and get their objective. Generally, that is a mainstream American movie. It's about a main character pursuing objective in the face of opposition with an underlying theme and having someone to talk to along the way. The window character, which anchors the theme of the main character, is something that's missing from a lot of mainstream movie making nowadays. By not having a window character, by not having a theme, movies tend to be very light. They just tend to be about a character pursuing objective, and it's just a struggle. It's like watching a boxing match or a wrestling match and not really knowing anything about the characters involved. A football game, not knowing about any of the storylines. Recently, Drew Brees just broke a record of consecutive games with a touchdown pass. Now, if that storyline did not exist, the emotional weight and meaning of that first touchdown pass of the most recent game he was in would not affect us as an audience member. Now, everyone in the crowd during that game cheered even more than they usually do. They were really excited about it, very happy for Drew Brees. So without knowing that information, without knowing what it means to football, to Drew Brees, we miss out on the emotional impact of it. Any show we watch on TV, even the news, whether it's fictional storytelling, whether it's reality TV, they try to get us interested based on the characters, based on what's going on, with the emotional struggle of the people that we're watching. So whether it's a sporting event, a news piece where tragedy befell some kind of character, and now they're doing like a 5-minute in-depth sort of piece on tragedy struck this family, or drunk driving gone wrong, texting while driving, anything like that. We're always anchored with the emotions of the characters. So filmmaking today is kind of leaving the emotions on the side. We're watching a lot of action, a lot of fighting, and we're having that exhilaration of just the visual, visceral element, but we're not getting what it means for the people involved in the fight. Storytelling, and the reason we remember movies is because the movies, the story, the struggle, the conflict means something to the characters. And if the characters care, then we care. This is our first tip, our first hint that Coulson is probably going to die in the film. 26 minutes, 48 seconds. Pepper Potts refers to Coulson as Phil, as he's visited Tony Stark's condo, apartment, penthouse here, and he's going to ask him to get back into the Avengers Initiative. There's a lot of weight being given to Coulson's character. There was another tip-off in the marathon viewing of the Marvel films when the Avengers premiered at midnight, in that Coulson was the character that introed each film during that Marvel-thon. So it was almost like his swan song. We were really getting to know him because his death needs to mean something to the characters, and his death is the one that galvanizes them together, that forges their bond. Fury is going to manipulate them later by using the Captain America collector cards, and to make it hit home that Coulson was willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good, so it's something that these characters must do. And that's the theme that Joss is including here, and he's done the best that he can, trying to fit it in within the constraints of what's going here, because in a lot of ways, we as an audience would feel a little bit let down if there wasn't enough action and genre set-piece payoff going on here. We've been waiting so long for this film. We want each character to have a time to shine. We want each character to be introed in a really fun way. And we want the battles to be huge, the effects to be great. We go to the Avengers for the number one reason when we're looking at character structure, the element of character structure that we want to latch onto and we want the most of is genre. So we want to see the flying fortress. We want to see the Chitauri, these aliens attacking, and we want to see all the Avengers get together and fight them off. Those are the moments that we're waiting for. And then add to that the comedic moments. Anything the Hulk does. The Hulk has never been done better here. Joss Whedon finally cracked the code in that what's fun about the Hulk is not only does he have the super crazy strength, but he also can't control his anger even when he's friendly with people. So anytime he punches Thor out of the screen or rescues Iron Man then pushes him off of him, and then of course the great moment when he just ragdolled Loki back and forth in the middle of his speech, which is another example of Joss Whedon establishing the cliches. Here's the bad guy speech, and we're expecting it to go on for a moment or two, and then the Hulk just cuts it short and starts beating him back and forth against the ground. So well done. One of the greatest laughs I've ever experienced in a movie theater for myself and just everyone around. Just so unexpected, so joyous, a lot of fun. "30 minutes, 10 seconds. You question us? You question him? He who put the scepter in your hand? Who gave you ancient knowledge and new purpose when you were cast out and defeated? I was a king." So this is a window character moment for Loki. Each character, imagine if each character had their own structure, their own well-defined dramatic elements established. It would only make them more powerful, more real. And every time we see any of them fighting, we would know why they care, what the stakes are, and we would be emotionally invested for them or against them. But until I open the doors, until your force is mine to control, you are but words. You will have your war as guardian. This character is a little bit generic looking. I don't really know too much about the Avengers universe. If the Tesseract is kept from us, there will be no realm, no barren moon, no crevice where he cannot find you. So he, again, is Thanos. This character just looks like a random Skeletor, He-Man, alien dude in armor. I mean, it looks okay, but it's not really too defined. If you don't see a character's eyes, if you don't really see their flesh, kind of really who they are and why they care, they just become a generic bad guy. The weakest point of this film is that those Chitauri are just so dispensable. It's like having stormtroopers. They're all the same, and you really don't feel anything when any of them are shot. If we know more about what their purpose is, other than generic rule of the universe, we feel more of a connection in terms of fighting against them. We want to see them fail. Braveheart's a really great example of this in terms of making us care about battles and giving us the point of view of the opposition. We understand why William Wallace is fighting. We understand why Edward the Longshanks is opposing him and what his goals are, so that each time these battles occur, these massive battles, these awesome genre set pieces, we care about each of them in a different way, because in different points of time, based on what's going on with each of the characters, the opposition, the main character, they mean something different. Without those moments, without the times that Edward the Longshanks talks to his son about, here's what you must do, here's what it means to be a king, without William Wallace trying to convince the Scottish noble council to join him and what the fight against the English means, without these important and just wonderfully dramatic moments, the fights mean nothing. So action means only as much as what the characters have invested into it. We need to know why the characters care. It's such a huge, huge part of it. But then again, 33 minutes, 23 seconds. Awesome, awesome set piece here. Turbines powering up. Low angle through the water. Really well filmed. All the effects. Let's just give it up to everyone that was sharing their talent in this film, because the effects here are just unreal. Amazing. The concept here is great. The way it looks, the way it feels. In 3D, it looked amazing. It's an experience that we haven't had before on the big screen. Anytime we go to a movie and experience something new, that says a lot. The control room and some really funny jokes are going to be coming into play in a moment. Joss Whedon is really good about going back in the rewrites and adding in a little bit of character fun. Just what would this random character be doing? Yeah, he'd be playing Galaga on his computer. And we'll just cut back to that. So fun. Such a nice twist on the expectations of this moment because it seems serious, and just having those human moments make it feel real. It's the little details, it's the specific moments that really make something end up feeling authentic, feeling like it's grounded in a reality. We have a cloaking device here, and it's done in a new, different way. When I think cloaking device, I always think Klingons or Romulans from Star Trek. And the way the cloaks engage in those stories is different than what's happened here. Great moment there, 35 minutes, 6 seconds. Captain America gives Nick Fury a $10 bill. I'm going to call back a very memorable moment from Die Hard, because it's just a way to enrich characters. It's a way to inform us that off-screen, these characters continue to live. Characters don't just start moving and acting and feeling and thinking and wanting things when the camera says go. When we cut away from a moment, the characters we just left continue to exist. They continue to be driven by everything that's been driving them throughout the film so far. What's been established in terms of their goals, their dreams, their hopes, their fears, who they are in terms of their personalities, how they engage with other people. All of these elements continue to move forward when we cut away from characters. So by having that moment of Captain America give Nick Fury $10, we know that they made a bet. Captain America's been impressed. And it's just a nice way to reveal their relationship with each other. There's a moment in Die Hard where at the Nakatomi Plaza, Hans Gruber is interrogating one of the managers and asking for the access code, Mr. Takagi. And after he ends up shooting him, that's a 24-year-old spoiler, so if you haven't seen that movie, get to it right now. But after he shoots Mr. Takagi, the two characters just in the background, you have to watch it in widescreen in order to see this. In the background, Theo pays Carl some money, and Carl says, "I told you." And it's not explained, but it is captured just in the corner so that we know before the scene started, off-screen somewhere, Theo and Carl were making a bet as to whether Hans would be able to get the information from Takagi while he was still alive. Would Takagi tell him or not? And it's just a fun thing that you catch maybe in the second or third viewing, and it just enriches the moment a little bit more. Characters are all main characters. Every character in a film is a main character. You have to treat every single character like that. Even a movie like this with 6 main characters who really act as one huge character because they all have the same goal. They all have their individual personalities, so they approach that goal differently. And they all kind of have their mini thematic stories. They have an exterior goal of stopping Loki, saving the world, but then they have these personal thematic goals. Tony Stark kind of just wants to be on his own. He wants to run the show. Captain America wants to do things the noble way, the old-fashioned American way from the 40s. The Hulk just wants to do this job and just be left alone. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. Black Widow wants to clear her ledger. She has red in her ledger, so she owes Hawkeye a debt, and she wants to pay it off. She wants to be on her own. Hawkeye, we don't really know again, because he's just kind of zombified. We don't really get to see his passions, but we do care about him because of what Black Widow mentions he did for her in terms of saving her. We know Loki's goals. We know Fury's goals, Coulson. All the characters, the major characters, were clear with what they want. Even the guy who's playing Galaga, even though the movie's not about him and we're not going to see him on screen a lot, if all of a sudden the camera decided to follow this character for his movie, you can make kind of a side quill of that character only, the Galaga character. What would this movie look like through his perspective? As a writer, as a creator of a story, have those answers. But we only see other characters when their contributions are important to the main character that we're following. Loki is the main opponent of this film, and again, he is basically a henchman of the Chitauri, of Thanos, of the Other. Really cool effect, like how that car is on its front bumper skidding along. Looks very cool. Here is Loki's belief, his justification for why he wants his goals, and how he views humanity. It's always low angle every time we see Loki in the gear. Low angle as the people kneel here at 40 minutes 10 seconds. It's high angle. Low angle for Loki means that he's more ominous, he's more powerful on a huge 70-foot screen. His presence makes us feel like it's over us, he's above us, he's stronger. And then the high angle looking down on humanity kneeling here, a cross-section of humanity, symbolizing the world of humanity, makes it feel like these people are that much smaller, that they're weak. I really like the mini speech that Loki gives here, in that he talks about how humans just want to kneel. They want to be ruled. And this is why he doesn't feel bad about wanting to be the king of the earth here, because humans are designed that way. They always want to have a leader. They can't handle the freedom. Look to your elder people. So we have a character who symbolizes, in a very safe way, the experience in World War II. Someone who's from Germany, and they survived the horrors of Hitler's oppression. Now we have Captain America show up, and he echoes that in the reference of he fought against Hitler. He was there, and there's always going to be guys like Loki. Loki's not anyone special. There are always people who think that they should be controlling other people. At this point, I want to bring up the idea of what if Captain America's journey would have been a little bit stronger in this film. I think the characters in this movie that really have an opportunity to shine when it comes to their emotional state and a thematic journey are Captain America and Iron Man. The movie that led up to the Avengers was Captain America. Captain America is about a character who, and notice here, 42 minutes 30 seconds, Iron Man shows up and steals Captain America's thunder. Notice that on their chests, they each have a little symbol. Iron Man has the upside-down triangle, and Captain America has a star. There is, in mystic tradition, the idea of chakras. And in Iron Man, talk about Iron Man first, then Captain America, so that we don't lose our train of thought regarding that point. But really quickly, 43 minutes, 3 seconds, Loki has allowed himself to be captured. We really can't believe that these guys have taken Loki by force. As here, Captain America mentions that. He says that this guy really packs a wallop, and I really can't believe that we captured him so easily. So something is going on. There's some kind of motivation here. There's something else. We establish the tension between Captain America and Iron Man. And it's great tension, and I wish it would have been focused on even more, brought up even earlier. 43 minutes, 40 seconds. We are missing the intro of another character, Thor. Thor also is a character that has a clear objective. He wants to bring Loki home. He wants to repair his relationship with his brother. He still feels bad about that. Later, Thor is going to say that he once was like Loki. He once wanted to rule. He once was hungry for war, but now he stopped. Now, in Thor, the film, that journey is a little bit quick, but we'll accept it. He's a changed man in this movie. So he shows up, takes Loki because of his objective, and now we have different combinations of characters clashing. That's one thing to do in screenwriting, one little exercise to do in terms of dramatic variety. Who haven't we seen fight each other, or who else can be in tension? In a movie filled with superheroes and quote-unquote good guys and girls, it's a lot more fun if they're not perfect. It's a lot more fun to watch if they're in conflict with each other. Yeah, they're unified against the threat, but it's very surprising and exciting and just more dynamic with the storytelling potential if they're each other's opponents. They have a unified goal, but they can't stand each other. They don't get along. That's a lot of fun to watch. A new beaten sequence here, and just this sequence of let's have Thor and Iron Man fight. Captain America gets involved. Again, one logic question here would be, as these characters fight, Loki just sits on this ledge and kind of just waits it out. He's not trying to escape. Here we get the 45 minutes, 25 seconds continuation of the Thor movie storyline, where Thor is always about, come on, Loki, let's go back. Father accepts you. Remember what happened in the other movie, and we can redeem ourselves as brothers. We can learn to live together. But Loki just is too much of a baby. He's too egotistical. He's too much, I want to be king. You know, it's my toy. I don't want to share it with anybody. So he's very whiny in terms of his stubbornness. He does not want to change, and he's gone a little bit crazy. He feels like nobody loves him, and that, you know, he's taken away from his family as a young kid, and he learns his true identity, that he's not really a true son of Odin, and he feels like it's just him by himself on this earth. And even though Thor is trying to be emotional and connecting with him, it's not working. Story-wise, Loki does just sit up here because he wants to be captured, so it's kind of weird that none of the characters, after their fun, great genre set-piece fight, we go to this movie because we want genre set-piece payoff, not because we want super dramatic character exploration, even though when these moments when characters occur, we enjoy them and we remember them, and they're the reason we care about all this other stuff. So we want to have the fun, but at the same time, we need to have this character nutrition. You know, it's like eating a meal. We all want dessert. We all want the sweet stuff. We want to avoid the vegetables, but you need to have that in order to have the variety in the palate and to really enjoy the difference in taste. You need the tart to appreciate the sweet. You need the cold to appreciate the heat, and vice versa. So there have to be these parallels. There have to be these differences. We need to have character, the balance of theme and emotion in film, along with the joy of the music and the set piece and the one-liners and the genre. If it's too weighted with genre and set pieces, films are light. They're enjoyable at the moment, but forgettable in the end. If they're too heavy with the drama, they could possibly feel tired or overbearing. You know, you have to balance it all out. Again, it all comes down to genre expectations. What do we want when we're going to see Avengers? I know for myself, I wanted to see all these characters together, fighting, kicking ass, doing their thing, using their powers, and doing it in different inventive ways. Really cool fight choreography, great visuals, great effects, but also to just say something a little bit more. Power at 400%. Okay, how about that? 48 minutes, 25 seconds. Really fun fight here with Thor and Iron Man. I do wish that Thor and Loki were a little more grounded with us in terms of explaining what the limits of their powers are. There's that moment when Loki is going to drop Thor in the Hulk containment chamber towards the Earth, and he says, the humans think of us as gods. Let's test that theory. So what can hurt these characters? Let us know that so we can feel that there is a chance that these characters could potentially lose in a fight. One of the problems with the new Die Hard movie, Part 5, John McClane has basically become the American James Bond, and he calls it out in the preview, is that we no longer believe John McClane can lose. The joy of the first and even the second Die Hard film is that he's still a blue-collar cop, and he still doesn't know what he's doing, and he could potentially die. So when we have the vulnerabilities for characters, we have that sense of, uh-oh, if their opponent finds the weakness, they could die. Without having that for Loki or Thor, you kind of just watch it and say, okay, well, they're just fighting, it'll be fun, no one's going to get hurt. It becomes cartoonish. Even though it is super real, there is a conceit that obviously this is a fantasy. Still grounding the characters enough with vulnerabilities would make us care about them in a different way in the moment. Notice that Captain America shows up, and he's the one that stops the fight. So we just have really powerful kids who are just wanting to be the leader of the pack, fighting it out, not able to put their egos aside. Captain America is the one who really is the leader of the Avengers. He's the one who's able to strategize the fight and able to bring them together. And one thing I wanted to see in this film, I'm at 50 minutes, 37 seconds, Loki's being brought down the hallway. Again, I do wish someone would have said, we just fought each other for like 5 minutes. It was awesome, but by the way, wouldn't Loki have tried to escape? So why didn't he? So a little more of that, what is his plan? And here as he smiles and walks past Bruce Banner, 50 minutes, 57 seconds, we get the hint that this is his secretive goal. But then again, let's ask this. If Bruce Banner can control the Hulk, then Loki's manipulation of him wouldn't work. So if we're going to buy that Bruce Banner can't control it at this moment, we need to have that connector, that missing link of logic that says, here is the moment Bruce finally gained control of his inner demon, and now he can work with it. Now he can merge with it. It's no longer Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's no longer a fearful thing, but now it is something that he can use to his advantage, something that he can work with, and now he can do something that benefits humanity. He can use his power for good. The reason he doesn't want to engage the Hulk is because he can't control it. There we have just a little bit of story logic going on. If Loki is here to unleash the Hulk, that implies that Bruce Banner cannot control the Hulk. But if at the end Bruce Banner can control him, it would mean Loki's manipulation here would not work. So what we're missing is that middle part in between those two ideas that says, here is when Banner learned to control it by the end of the film. And that really is his character journey. So even though we as an audience have been waiting for the Avengers forever, we want to see all these characters together, we want awesome genre set pieces, just action, make it fun for us, would it have been more powerful if the Hulk, if Bruce Banner has his mini journey within this film, if his objective is all about if he can't cure the Hulk, which is what the classic objective of the Hulk is, he wants to find a cure, wants to get rid of this monster, what if his objective here was to somehow be in control of it, to maintain his consciousness while he is the Hulk? At the end here, there's enough of a balance where we feel it's Bruce Banner, but yet the irrational rage monster still controls a lot of things, so that's why he punches Thor out of the screen and pushes Iron Man off him. And those moments are funny and actually endear us to him because he's in control enough to not hurt his friends, but he's out of control enough in that his impulses and his rage he kind of bullies them a little bit, but in a fun way. And again, they're superheroes, so they're not going to get hurt. So it makes it work really well. But as a character, Bruce Banner needs to have that journey. At the beginning, he needs to state that he can't find a cure for it. So he's trying to find a way to control it, maybe with the help of Tony Stark, some kind of technology. He's able to find a way, that missing link, that there's some kind of regulatory chip they implant or some kind of DNA chemical compound that they inject. Something happens that allows Bruce Banner to maintain more control of the Hulk. And that would have been a fun, really great emotional journey to take, so that the moment he says, "I'm always angry" or "I can control it," that line would have to be rewritten to now match the new thematic journey he has. But that could have been a very emotional moment. It was a very cool moment because it's like, "I'm always angry, transform, roar, I'm the Hulk." Great. And now we get to see him Hulk out, so we're cheering. But it would have impacted us even stronger. And as he's fighting now, as Bruce Banner as the Hulk, we would have had kind of an emotional twist on our joy, because now he's in control and he's moved forward as a character. Would have been really fun, a little bit different, but it's an example of the more you add emotion, the more you add character to films, it can only help it. We will still have these great action set pieces, but now we will only care more. Character and emotion can never hurt a film. And if one opinion is, yeah, but you don't want to sit through moments of exposition when characters are blah-blahing about what they care about or not, and you just want to get to the good stuff, think about films that have had that, and most likely those films don't necessarily stick with us. We watch them, we enjoy them for the moment, but we just forget about them. What happens when that's included in a film? We only care more, and those are the films we keep going back to. Great scene here, 55 minutes, 58 seconds. We just get the payoff there of the Galaga. And Tony Stark comes in. We had his introduction in terms of Iron Man as the ass kicker, and now we have his introduction as Tony Stark the genius. He comes in and he runs the entire team. He just walks around the entire set, does his speaking fast, using big words, terminology, sharing his genius, and just showing off. And it's so fun. And then he says, "Oh, and that guy's playing Galaga." And then at the end, that guy clicks back to it. We get him clashing with Captain America. We have him connecting with Bruce Banner. Oh, someone who finally speaks English. And then we cut to the next scene where he's poking Bruce Banner. Great writing by Joss Whedon there. Good idea in terms of this is who Tony Stark is. And he's not really afraid of the Hulk. He just wants to kind of study him and see what it takes to make the Hulk emerge. The major conflict with these characters within the team seemed to be between Tony Stark and Captain America. Now going back to the star on Captain America's chest and the technology within the chest of Tony Stark, it's a clashing of two ages. Captain America leads into the Avengers, and the whole notion of that film, the journey of Steve Rogers, is heart and courage, no matter the vessel that is in, is what we as people want. It's what leads us to victory, and it's the ideal that the America of the 40s stands for. He always had the heart of the hero, but he just didn't have the means to express it. And it was played really well in that film when the doctor character who gave him the super soldier serum told him that it amplifies what's already in there. So when you get this power, you have to use it wisely, you have to use it for good. And he knows he will because he's a good man. In as much as Steve Rogers and Captain America represents the idealism, the notion of that hero of the 40s, of classic Americana, Tony Stark represents the new spirit of the times, in that it's all about the self. It's all about get rich for yourself, have your toys, stand out from the crowd, be the one everybody looks at. Try to not necessarily go for connecting people together and fighting as one and having kind of a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a humanity, a union of humanity behind a cause, behind an ideal, behind these noble notions, but instead just do your own thing, be the best, show off. It's really a clashing of two ages, of two ideals. That's what the struggle between these two characters is really about. Now here in this moment, 59 minutes, 47 seconds, as Tony Stark is talking with Bruce Banner, we're getting more revelations from Bruce. So Bruce is having his window character moment. For Bruce Banner, Tony Stark is his window character. This is where he's able to voice his objective, his desires, what he wants. This is an opportunity for Bruce Banner to say, it would be great to cure it, but if I couldn't, I'd at least want to control it. And with the help of Tony Stark, maybe they can somehow achieve that. That could happen here. We get the great sets, we get the great visuals, but let's focus on the characters. And every time we see them, let's have them state those desires at the beginning when we first meet them. And as we continue to see them through the story, and as these heroes are in conflict with each other, they move forward in terms of their objectives, the exterior ones and the interior ones. Again, the common reaction to that might be, why bother going there? Let's just have the fun action and the cool set pieces. Well, we get that anyways. So imagine just adding into the scene we just had with Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, adding in these notions. It wouldn't increase the running time at all. It would be a line or two, you take out a couple other lines, but you have to make Bruce Banner really care about something and really want something. And as he forms his bond with Tony Stark here, then Tony wants it for him. The major struggle between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers is that Steve Rogers is all about sacrificing the self and doing something for the greater good. And Tony Stark is about not thinking necessarily about the bigger picture, but focusing on the self. He's all about doing what's good for me. And if by having Stark Industries create this renewable energy source or doing something green for the environment, that's fine. But as long as I, Tony Stark, get the credit. He has a building that has his name on the outside of it, towering above all the other ones in the city. It's all about him getting noticed, him wanting to have the love of people he'll never meet. It's his ego. The whole thing about being a hero, and what should be the bigger theme when it comes to the characters, the main characters in this film, is that it's about a bunch of strangers, a bunch of individuals who come together to do something as a unified whole for the greater good. Being a hero is all about sacrificing yourself for somebody else. It's about making a sacrifice. And Tony Stark has slowly gone on the journey of letting go of his personal desires and realizing that now that he has power, he should do something with it for other people. It's a lot of fun in the Iron Man movies to see how slow that process is, because he is who he is. He's narcissistic. He describes himself in the earlier scene when Coulson pays Stark and Pepper Potts a visit, and he describes himself as being narcissistic, self-centered, and that's all he cares about. But this movie, by having Captain America really be Tony Stark's main opponent here, because it's the opposition of ideals, it's the opposition of old hero notions, old hero ideas that Captain America represents, clashing with the modern day culture, iPad, iPhone. It's interesting how the more technology is supposed to connect us, the more it isolates us, the more it puts us in our own mini universes. And this is the struggle. This is really what these two characters should bring to this movie. This is my favorite dramatic moment in the movie. So well done. It reveals everything you need to know about Black Widow. This makes her more of a badass than the action scene we saw her in at the beginning with the Russian guys. The way she mentally manipulates Loki, who is supposed to be a silver-tongued mental manipulator himself, the way she plays him pays off in ways that go beyond the easy, kick-ass karate fighting we saw her do earlier. I'd much rather be watching her do this than the other stuff. This is so much fun, especially because she goes up with a guy who thinks he knows it all. This is another example of Joss Whedon taking a cliche moment, spinning it so that it's something new and fresh, and it takes us by surprise. This also reveals her emotional connection to Hawkeye, why she cares about him, why she is taking the actions that she's taking. We reveal why Loki has allowed himself to be captured and who he really is on the inside. This is really played well by Scarlett Johansson, by the way. The emotional impact. Barton told me everything. Your ledger is dripping. It's gushing red. And you think by saving a man more virtuous than yourself will change anything. So great. And just the cruelty that comes out of Loki. You get to see a side of him that Thor never sees. Thor is playing him as very ideal. He just sees him as a little brother. But when Loki reveals this venom that's inside of his soul, it's so cruel and harsh. Here we get Steve Rogers discovering what S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing with the Tesseract technology. This is like one of the worst things I've ever heard in terms of an opponent or a villain saying anything to a main character. Even if you watch a movie like Saw or something, when she says you're a monster, the pure just evil that comes out of Loki in this moment. It would have been great if Thor would have saw this somehow. And now she turns. Okay, so your play is Banner. Loki means to unleash the Hulk. Notice that in this sequence, Joss Whedon has a lot of parallel editing going on. Each character is pursuing kind of their own little interest. They have the big objective of stopping Loki and the alien race. They don't verbalize the alien race just yet, but they have the notion that Loki wants something with the Tesseract, so they have that. But now they all find out their little mini objective. What is Phase 2? Tony Stark. Computer was moving a little slow for me, so Captain America finds the super weaponry. And now Captain America is going to say, even though the times have changed, the people have stayed the same. Things really haven't changed. People still want power. Now all the characters come together. Thor has pretty much stayed still. It would have been nice if Thor somehow saw a moment of Loki being so evil. It would have changed his mind in terms of wanting to change his brother, turn him towards the good side. Maybe there is no hope for him. Thor is very much like Luke trying to save Darth Vader. This is an important scene where, because the conflict is not coming from the Chitauri yet, from the other, from Thanos, or from Loki, the heroes who are supposed to be unified are really at war with each other. Notice the camera movement here. It's all going to be a series of long shots, camera fluidly moving through the space, following the discussion back and forth. We have a cut here, 1 hour, 9 minutes, 4 seconds, but then the camera goes back to fluid thought again. The play is that Loki has to unleash the Hulk. We've talked about the logic of that. And then we flow over camera to the scepter, and somehow the scepter is what's influencing all the characters. The camera does the flip over, so now Loki has literally turned the heroes upside down. They are not their normal selves. Through there we cut to Hawkeye and Loki's forces homing in on the signal of the spear, of the scepter, and they are about to invade the flying fortress. It kind of is a little bit goofy with Hawkeye and his bow and arrow. I know bow and arrows are hot right now, like every single show and movie have a character with a bow and arrow, whether it's Revolution on TV or it's the Hunger Games. Bow and arrows are just hot. But come on, get real. In a world where you have Tesseract power and Tesseract technology, even if you are the sharpest shot, and it does look cool when Hawkeye looks away and shoots behind him and jumps in the air and shoots the bow and arrow and has all these different types of arrows. It's fun to look at, and again, it's a fantasy. It's a superhero fantasy, so why not? You can enjoy it. More conflict again. Great moment here. 1 hour, 10 minutes, 35 seconds between the two characters that really carry the bigger moral of the story, which is, what does it take to be a hero? Everything that's special about you came out of a bottle. And Captain America talks about how Tony Stark needs a suit to be a hero. That's a very nice dramatic moment between those two. But we know that Captain America is all heart. Even before he was changed by something from a bottle, he was always a hero. Put on the suit, let's go a few rounds. One hour, 11 minutes, 22 seconds. You people are so petty and tiny. And then Tony Stark wipes his forehead, so you get the sense that they're being affected by something. It would be nice if there was a shot of Loki, like somehow transmitting his thoughts or doing some kind of psychic thing to allow the spear to project some kind of energy force a little bit more. Just to connect that a little bit more, because this is a great scene, it's an important scene, and there's actually been a big lull in terms of the action here. The last time there was any kind of fighting was when Iron Man and Thor were going at it, and then Captain America showed up. So that was before they even got onto this flying fortress, and now we're about to have an action sequence. So it's been at least 15 minutes or so. And it's the fight between Iron Man and Captain America that continues here. So Joss Whedon knows that that's really where the heart of this film is. Just to finish up the point about these symbols on their chests, in that Captain America has something that's kind of always been there. It stands for something older. And Iron Man has that technology that it's artificial, it's been put there. But in both occurrences, there is a symbol above their heart chakra. There's the idea in mystical schools that human beings have a series of chakras that go up along their spines, and each chakra references different energy points, different energy characteristics. And the lower chakras are representative of animalistic desires, control, power, conquest. It's the heart chakra that takes humans out of being animalistic and makes them have the potential to be human. It's about having empathy and sympathy. It's about connection with the others around you. It's about unifying humanity. It's about entering humanity, true humanity. And by Tony Stark getting this implant in the first Iron Man, could there be this idea that now he's moving away? His heart chakra has been activated. This doesn't need to be spoken about. It doesn't need to be focused on with endless scenes, but it can just be an implied something that's there. This accident, this tragedy, has allowed him to activate something within himself that was dormant. And now he's gained a new level of perception, of perspective. And now by being Iron Man, he can be connected with those around him and do something to be a true hero. Being a true hero really means sacrificing the ego self and unifying with the greater good, with the bigger picture, with fellow humans. And that's what the struggle is here. It's Captain America versus Iron Man. It's a team of individuals coming together to be a unified whole, not losing their individuality, but realizing what is special about each of them and how they can use their powers to fight together to defeat the others, the Chitauri, the foes that come to challenge their ideals. Now, to stop getting deep and to focus on just the pure fun of it, we get what we've been waiting for: an hour and 15 minutes, 14 seconds. Finally, the Hulk has emerged. This was a fun moment in the theater. It is a little bit illogical if we do, again, think about the end where he can control it or not, but let's not think about this now. We do get a nice close-up there of Loki smiling. 1 hour, 15 minutes, 32 seconds. Loki's plan has worked. Now, it's not really clear how he unleashed the Hulk. He just was in this space and he kind of was sitting around. There was no clear visualization that he was connected with the scepter and the Tesseract power there. And there was nothing shown that indicated his influence on the other characters. So we're missing just a shot or two of him somehow being able to unleash these emotions in these characters and bring them into conflict a little bit more. Because when he smiles there's a sense of satisfaction. So if there is satisfaction, we need to have the build-up to that. What is he working towards? She figures out your play is the Hulk, goes to tell the group, and then the group has a fight, and then the Hulk is unleashed. Well, how did it go from your play is the Hulk to the Hulk unleashed? And how did Loki directly do that? Because it just seems that Loki got played by Black Widow. If there was like a flip where Loki thinks he's in control, Black Widow played him, Loki pretends he just got played, and then as she goes to tell the group Loki's plan, then he smiles again and he just played her. So it was like spy, double spy, triple spy. Great visual there as the Hulk runs after Black Widow. 1 hour, 17 minutes, 12 seconds. And we believe that he's going to kill her. We believe that he's going to take her out. but Thor stops it. So we've gotten all the different combinations. Let's have each of these heroes fight each other. And that's the big payoff. That's the major thing we wanted to see. So let's just, as a movie-going audience, call ourselves out and just say, here's the thing we really wanted in this movie. We've been waiting for it ever since Iron Man 1. We've been teased throughout all these other superhero films. And going into this film, we want number one, genre. Genre set piece payoff. Give us each character having their moments, and then let's have some fun with what would happen if these characters fought each other, because having the Hulk fight a bunch of faceless, alien, dispensable creatures, it's fun to see, but how much more enjoyable is it if it's the Hulk versus Thor, Hulk versus Iron Man, Thor versus Iron Man, Captain America versus Iron Man? Having all these combinations, that really makes it fun, because it's kind of like that Marvel vs. Capcom video game from the 90s. I love this shot here of 1 hour, 18 minutes, 30 seconds. Thor just holds out his hand, and it just takes forever for the hammer to get there, but you know it's coming. And then he hits the Hulk. Establishing the Hulk's vulnerabilities, I know that in classic Hulk literature, he doesn't have any vulnerabilities. He gets stronger the angrier he is. The Hulk does look great here, by the way, in terms of his visualization. Just looks really great. And this is where it helps to know what Thor's vulnerabilities are. If he's just this god that is not going to take any damage, then it's just a fun thing to watch, and we don't really necessarily fear for his well-being. If Thor can take on the Hulk and not be worried about being destroyed by him, then there's no way he's going to be hurt falling to the ground in some kind of chamber. I mean, having him escape from that chamber just before it hits, really great visual. But at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, he just took on the Hulk and he's not, like, even hurt, so why would that hurt him? The Hulk is unleashed, and we get some genre set-piece action that we've been waiting for. Loki's plan is working, even though we just needed to see a little more of what exactly that plan would be. I want to talk about the whole notion of the Tesseract and Tesseract technology, because at the end of Captain America, the United States and Tony Stark's father have in custody the German scientist who created all of the technology for Red Skull. And much like what happened in real life after World War II, Operation Paperclip, the United States government brought over a lot of German scientists and allowed them to continue their research and work. Wernher von Braun is a major force in respect to NASA and helping us land on the moon. Without the Germans, we might have lost the space race, and it's all because of Operation Paperclip. So one question would be, at the end of Captain America, the United States and the intelligence community, which will soon become S.H.I.E.L.D., have in their possession the man responsible for creating all these awesome weapons that Germany and the Red Skull were using. So why, after all this time, hasn't that technology advanced? It's been 60 or 70 years since Steve Rogers was Captain America in the 40s. So when he awakens, shouldn't he discover not only recently developed technology, because here Fury explains that it's being developed because of Thor's presence. It was the knowledge that Thor and these gods existed that motivated the US or S.H.I.E.L.D. to use the Tesseract to create this super technology. Yeah, okay, I guess we're going to buy at 1 hour, 21 minutes, 50 seconds that Hawkeye can shoot a computer virus arrow with a unique interface into the console over here, and it's going to disable the ship. It's fun. It's, again, Hawkeye has proven that he can hit targets from anywhere. His name is Hawkeye, so we're going to buy it. It's just a fun visual. Romanoff's kind of shaken up here. 1 hour, 22 minutes, 23 seconds. Tony Stark repairing the wing. And this is part of his journey in terms of sacrificing himself and doing something for the greater good, putting aside his ego. Tony's journey is all about putting aside the ego, and it could be argued that Steve Rogers, Captain America, doesn't really have an ego. He's really just a good guy, and he's all about the greater good. Tony Stark needs Steve Rogers. Iron Man needs Captain America in order to become the person he could potentially become. Thor's journey here is kind of cheesy, and why all of a sudden can Loki just leave this spot? Okay, fine, I guess something with the virus that Hawkeye shot into the ship, and now Loki can just leave this as he pleases, and then Thor goes after him. He still hasn't learned how to not fall for his tricks, and that's called out. Loki actually says that line, when are you not going to fall for that? Black Widow using all of her fancy skills. This is the third time we've seen it, first with the Russians, then running away from the Hulk, and now fighting Hawkeye. Hawkeye still, other than being mentioned by Black Widow as someone who chose not to kill her, is a unknown character. What motivates him? What are his goals? What are his desires? She is going to even the debt by rescuing him from the influence of Loki. Here she knocks him out, and he's going to slowly be restored. Coulson now is going to have his moment. We've built him up, emotionally connected to him, seen him in a bunch of scenes, and he's voiced his thoughts, his passions, his emotions in terms of what it all means. And here again, he has this awesome weapon. Loki's powers are unleashed. So Loki now all of a sudden goes back to being a badass, and it makes the Avengers seem kind of like idiots in a small way, especially with Thor being there. Thor is like the biggest idiot of all. Loki allows himself to be captured, and after all the chaos starts, he goes back into badass mode, and he can teleport and be like in 4 places at once and do all these great things. He takes out Coulson, and Thor didn't like let the rest of the team know, hey, by the way, this is what my brother's capable of. And by him being in this little chamber, I'm kind of not buying it. I feel like there's something more going on. It's like you kind of want that to happen, just to make it feel a little more authentic to Thor's character. His character's played a little bit straight in that there's no real change. It's kind of like a flat line on an EKG. There's obviously a heartbeat and he's doing his thing, but he's not really changing. He's not really pursuing anything. He wants to change Loki, but he's just kind of here just to fight when he needs to fight and have the Thor power. And he says Natasha. Natasha knocks Hawkeye out right here. So Thor's character is a little neglected in terms of what he really wants on that inner journey. And by having Loki one last shot with his brother, why couldn't there be a little more of an exploration in terms of who Thor is and how learning that his brother will not change, learning that his brother is evil. That's a harsh thing to learn. Imagine a mother or a father who come to the acceptance, the realization and the following acceptance that their son or daughter who are in prison, who have been convicted of a crime, actually are that kind of person. It's tough. So Thor should realize, you know what, my brother is a douche. I can't change him. So that by the end of the film, it's not Thor saying the same thing over and over. Loki, just join me. Loki, I know there's good in you. Loki, we can be brothers. We can rule together on Asgard. No, that's not who Loki is. That would have been a great journey for Thor. And it wouldn't take away from the fun of the film. This doesn't need to be dark like Batman. Oftentimes, the question is asked, what was the better movie this previous year? Dark Knight Rises or The Avengers? They're different. It's like asking what's better, The Godfather or Goodfellas. They're both set in similar genre worlds, where Godfather and Goodfellas are both about gangsters, and The Avengers and The Dark Knight are both about superheroes. The difference is who the main characters are. Michael Corleone is different from Henry Hill. Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, the Marvel Universe is different from the DC Universe. When Coulson is dying here, 1 hour, 28 minutes, 20 seconds, do we feel something as an audience? And why do we feel it? We feel it even more because of what's happened in this film. So the more time a character was given to voice his personality, his emotions, his beliefs, and the more we saw how characters cared about him, the more we mirrored those emotions. So that just as Fury is looking at Coulson now and seeing that he's dying, and now we're cutting to all the different team members hearing the news, we are in the same emotional state as these characters. Does that enrich our experience of the movie? Or does it take away from getting to the quote-unquote good stuff, to the fun stuff? When we, on the surface, look at our favorite films, or look at big-budget films like this, our immediate reaction in thinking about why we enjoyed them tends to be, oh, it was really fun when the Hulk fought Thor, when the Hulk was smashing the aliens. But if we go back and really take a look, the reason any of that mattered, and the reason we enjoy it so much, is because of the emotional connections with the characters. We just had a long, intense series of beaten sequences, all focusing on this genre set-piece attack moment. Iron Man starting the propellers back up, Steve Rogers showing his courage, Coulson making the ultimate sacrifice. Now we have a moment, a window character moment, a thematic moment, an emotional moment, where the characters can now look at how everything's affected them. Fury is using the Captain America cards as extra motivation, and here Tony Stark, in a rare moment, is quiet. It's all about what Tony Stark is thinking about. And as the words of Steve Rogers affect him, we can almost imagine that Captain America is inside of Tony Stark's head at that moment, and he's just replaying the words of what it means to be a hero, what it means to sacrifice, that Coulson didn't have any armor, he didn't have any special powers, he just had a notion of what was right and wrong, and he had the guts to follow it and to potentially make the ultimate sacrifice. And notice the framing of that scene, and as it is, it's them in their human form. It's Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, and Nick Fury in the middle. So it's like they're each the extremes of what a hero can be. Too much nobility, too much idealism versus egotism versus the individual. And Fury somehow trying to unite those two. And it's not overtly acknowledged, but it's subtextually implied. It's a great moment. It doesn't take away from the quote-unquote fun of the movie. It's almost like nowadays, anything that gets too emotional and too serious takes away from the fun of a movie. Well, if we're going to see characters fighting for something, and fighting for something in extreme ways, with great technology, with awesome action moves, karate, weaponry, we actually do want it to mean something. We're not consciously aware of it when a film is doing it because it happens so quickly. And in a lot of ways, we experience films unconsciously. Our conscious minds turn off. We don't sit there doing an audio commentary in our heads as we're watching it. We just sit in the seat and just allow ourselves to take it in. But unconsciously, we're in relationship with it. And we're not really aware of why moments impact us until we go back later and we really analyze it. Notice there's another serious scene, quote-unquote, a boring scene, delaying us from the fun of the action set pieces, as Clint and Natasha on a real human-to-human name basis. It's not Hawkeye and Black Widow. It's Clint and Natasha who share a genuine moment. This is the reason we are now going to care about Hawkeye later when he's fighting. Because Natasha cares about him and what they're sharing here. We have finally a moment when Hawkeye allows himself to reveal what he thinks, how he feels. He's basically been a POW, a prisoner of war, and he's been rescued. So how does he feel about that? Is he going to recover? Has this ever happened to him before? Make him interesting as a person. It's a relationship of Steve Rogers and Tony Stark that bonds us. It's Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. It's Thor and Loki. It would be nice if Thor had a little more emotion towards his other team members. The whole point of Thor, the individual film that came out, was that he was a cocky god at the beginning who didn't know yet what war meant, what the cost of war was, and wasn't ready to be a king. So Odin sends him to a planet filled with emotional, irrational beings so that he can learn something about himself and learn how to relate to people and learn how to be empathetic and sympathetic so that now is when he returns, he's ready to be a king. It seems like Thor in this film needs to carry that journey over, and he needs to be a little more vocal with that. He needs to be a little bit more aware of that in himself. When Loki was manipulating the group in that scene earlier, Thor kind of reverted to that earlier state. He called everyone, oh, you puny beings are so funny or so silly. So it was almost like Loki was bringing out the cockiness of that earlier form of Thor at the beginning of that film. Notice here, 1 hour, 36 minutes, 7 seconds, we have the emotional moment between Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. That's not the point. He made it personal. That's Loki's point. He hit us right where we live, to tear us apart. Steve Rogers is Tony Stark's window character. They're each other's window characters. They're each other's opponents. And that's a lot of fun when it comes to character structure. People who are supposed to be together, and it would be easy to make everyone just good and not really rocking the boat with each other. But how much more fun is it to watch when they're always at each other's throats? It's from Steve Rogers that Tony Stark learns to be a hero. And even though it's not set up too overtly, it would have been nice if there were a couple moments that stressed it a little more. Tony Stark, Iron Man, taking the missile and potentially sacrificing himself by going through the portal with it, that's a powerful moment. And the close-up is so great when we see Tony inside the suit. He's trying to call Pepper Potts. So awesome. There could have been even a little more impact to that. Because the way it was done here, it kind of felt last minute-ish, and it felt a little bit cliche in a lot of ways. And it's a cliche that didn't get turned on its head, as a lot of the other ones here did. And we get to see Nick Fury's ability here. Now, Nick Fury, you want him to be more of an ass-kicker. You want Sam Jackson to kind of have his moment to shine. But this is what he does. He's kind of a shadowy guy. What is Captain America's journey? Captain America is a man out of time. So it almost begs to be in this film that he should feel really out of place. And there are some little jokes here about him not really getting references. But he's a super soldier, and it means he's super intelligent. He has super strategy. He's able to adapt quickly. So we're just missing a couple moments where he can come up to speed. We've seen him with the punching bag, and he's had some time to be in this world. He is a man out of time, and a time that really needs a man like him. He's a man out of time in a time without a man. Being a man, quote-unquote cliché man, is really about accepting responsibility. There's a lot of talk nowadays about extended adolescence, 30-year-olds that are playing video games. You go back 30 years just when video games were starting, and take a look at what 30-year-olds of that era were doing. It's way different from what's going on right now. And imagine taking someone from that time and saying, okay, here's a 30-year-old nowadays. You can almost expect a cliche reaction of like, these are all boys. Where are the men at? So Steve Rogers, if we kind of use that term of being a man, what is it? It's responsibility, it's sacrifice, it's taking things on and willing to put aside these personal desires. So this time requires the man that Steve Rogers is, that Captain America is. And Tony Stark is a personification of this time. The way it's played right now, Captain America comes across already kind of being in this state of, I know what I need to do, even though he seems uneasy at times. It would have been nice to see him go through that adaptation so that at the end, when he's just in charge and saying, we need a radius of 16 blocks here, and you go here, and he's just really the commander of the group. We need to feel that and see that. And when he becomes the commander and becomes captain, he becomes the captain of the group, Captain America. There's a cheer that's let out because we know he's gone through it and he's become who he was always destined to be. And by his example, the other members of the group learn from him. It's the Captain America cards that Fury throws on the table. It's not Tony Stark cards, which I'm sure there are a ton of. It's not Iron Man cards because in this culture, he's very marketable and he's a business unto himself and he is a huge corporation. So of course he'd market himself. Of course he'd seek profit from it. So having the Captain America cards and if there were some Iron Man cards side by side, comparing those two, they mean something different. So it's Captain America cards which connect with Coulson's emotions and how he viewed what it meant to be a hero that is used to bring the group together. It's the death of Coulson, who in a lot of ways is such a huge fan of Captain America. He's an extension of Captain America. So it's Captain America that helps to save this time, this troubled time, this divided time. Really great, awesome genre set piece. Payoff here, love it. 1 hour, 41 minutes, 57 seconds. As the suit jets after a falling Tony Stark, and Jarvis is able to get it to him right before he falls. His name was Phil, so here we have a callback to that. So it's Coulson, who is an extension of Captain America, that ideal, that heroic ideal that Tony now calls forth in fighting Loki. Quickly, since Coulson was mentioned again, having Loki and Thor and their godlike powers have vulnerabilities would have impacted Coulson's death a little bit better because Coulson has this super weapon, a weapon that is Phase 2. It's a secret program that was established because of the existence of Thor and Loki and the gods. If we would somehow know that Thor and Loki have vulnerabilities, Coulson firing that weapon and putting himself at risk would mean something even more. It would have been great if that was just explained a little more. What does the weapon do? Why do they think it has the ability to hurt these gods? And what are the frailties of these gods? 1 hour, 43 minutes, the attack by the Chitauri. by the other, by Thanos, starts. And this is going to go pretty much until 2 hours and 10 minutes or so. It's literally going to be like over 20 minutes of nonstop action. This battle is going to be nonstop. It's going to take a long time, and we're going to see each of these characters have great moments to shine. We in the audience, again, wanting to see this movie forever, it needs to pay off with our expectations. Our expectations in a lot of ways have handcuffed this film in terms of it having to pay off our expectations and not being able to have the freedom to maybe be a little bit more emotionally intimate and to have more daring portrayal of the characters. The thing about Batman Begins and even The Dark Knight is that no one really expected those films to rejuvenate the franchise in the way that they did. The portrayal of Batman in Batman Begins was so different from the Tim Burton or the Joel Schumacher versions that it took us by surprise. And by us not having any expectations for it, it allowed freedom, creative freedom, to allow risks to be taken. Can't really do that too much with this movie here, because it has to pay off in a lot of ways. There have been previous films, previous language in terms of how the characters are explored and portrayed on screen has been established, and these kind of rules need to be followed. So you have to find ways to have surprises and creativity included in terms of where the characters go here. It does it well enough, but just talking about having each character have their own journey and what if this would have happened like we've been doing, it just shows how it could be done with just a little bit of a turn of a character here and there without too much of a jarring side effect or ripple effect. Thor and Loki fighting again at Stark Tower. Couple quick things here. Number one, with the Tesseract activated opening the portal, Iron Man tried to shoot at it. There's a shield. How about destabilizing the ground below it? What if Tony Stark levels his own building? It falls to the ground. The beam isn't pointing at the sky anymore. I guess you'd have to explain that no matter where it points, if it's at the sky or at the ground, it's really distorting space and time, so the army can come through at any point. It's also a symbol of Tony Stark destroying his ego, becoming more of a hero. Thor and Loki, in a lot of ways, are visually representing that. The name Stark on the big building is the representation of Tony Stark as the individual. And as the letters come off, his individuality, the focus on his individuality fades. He's always going to be the fun Tony Stark, super genius, narcissist, but he's going to be in control of it, he's going to be aware of it, and he's going to be able to be a team player when he wants to be. And potentially, he will be turned more towards that now. So as each letter falls off and just the A is left, it stands for Avengers, it stands for the team, and that's a visual symbol towards the end. There is no I in Stark either, so it's not about just the one man anymore. It's about the team. So potentially, Stark's tower becomes Avengers Tower, becomes a team tower. And it's just a nice symbol. So if Tony is the one to decide to level the building, it's he as a character making the choice, having the realization, I need to give up on my own self-satisfying pursuit, and I need to think a bigger picture. Loki and Thor fighting the same battle they've done before in terms of this is madness, follow me, you can still be saved, brother. If Thor would have had a couple moments earlier while Loki was captured, to see that Loki is not savable, that he's too corrupted, what would the scene mean? At the end of the movie, he's going to take Loki back to Asgard and potentially try to rehabilitate him. Thor never gives up. So let's have Thor say that. I refuse to give up on my brother. He once was a noble guy. He once was a good guy. That person's still in there. Let's talk about these aliens. Let's talk about the genericness of them. This isn't necessarily a knock on them. It's like, what are you going to do? This movie's so huge, such a big budget. There's so many characters to juggle. And again, the handcuffing expectations of millions of fans who want to see all these guys in action with each other. Want to see Hawkeye doing his badass thing here. So 1 hour, 48 minutes, 16 seconds. He starts shooting his arrows. Captain America goes off and does his thing. Black Widow's going to be doing her thing. Is there enough room and time to create unique, interesting, powerful, quote-unquote, bad guys? Never want to use the term bad guys because it implies lack of complexity within character. A bad guy, a villain, an opponent, it's just someone who is against the main character from getting what they want. If we turn the camera to the point of view of the bad guy and make them the main character, now our ex-main character is the bad guy. From the point of view of Thanos, the Avengers are the opponents. They're the villains. And if we followed Thanos enough, if we learn what makes him tick, why he cares about the things he cares about, we will be empathetic to him. And all of a sudden, we'll be maybe rooting against the Avengers, or it'll be a conflict within our spirits, kind of in our hearts, like who do we root against, and we want both of them to survive. Great moment there, 1 hour, 49 minutes, 30 seconds, as Captain America kicks butt in front of the police officer. The police officer says something that the Avengers should have said to him earlier on the Flying Fortress, which is, why should we listen to you? You're the one telling us what to do. You think you're the captain of our group. You think you've got the skills for the strategizing and how to lead us. Why should we listen to you? So the police officer does something that kind of the group instinctively basically says to Captain America. They say it without words. They follow his direction. And it's his display of, I'm the leader, I know what's going on, this is my expertise. Just like he led his team to destroying the Red Skull's forces, he can lead this team to saving the world. We're missing just one member of the team, 1 hour, 50 minutes, 54 seconds. The Hulk just shows up. Now, he fell out of the sky, fell into some warehouse. Harry Dean Stanton, who was in Repo Man and Alien, amongst other films, made a little cameo as a security guard who just says, yeah, I saw you as the Hulk, and you changed into this guy. Okay. From that point, we haven't seen the Hulk. And now he shows up. He's like, hey, this is where the fight is. He shows up on a motorcycle. And now we have a little bit of a cheat, Dr. Banner. Now might be a really good time for you to get angry. That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. Again, would have been great to have understood why this makes sense now, but we don't think about it in the moment because, again, we're experiencing the movie unconsciously. We're just in it. Our conscious mind is shut off. And as soon as he says that and turns to this flying dragon and punches it in the face, and it just, face gets buried in the street, and it starts to flip over, and then Captain America shoots a missile into it, and it explodes. We're not thinking about logic. We're just like, this is awesome. And then we get the amazing trailer moment shot, 1 hour, 52 minutes, 10 seconds. They're all in a circle, backs facing each other, and the camera moves around them. Really great heroic shot. This final battle has so many, like, just great Spielberg type, this is what movie making is about, shots of capturing just images, like burn these images into our mind, very cool looking moments. And it's paying off on 3D. This is a 3D film. There's been an upcharge for this. So not only do we want to have a great story, we want to have these awesome set pieces, but the 3D has to be worth it. Captain America here, 1 hour, 52 minutes, 58 seconds. As the group is together, he has become who he needs to be, and he is leading the group. And then in Joss Whedon fashion, we have like serious, 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 serious line telling everyone how to fight the fight, and then he turns to the Hulk and says, "Hulk, smash." And then we follow the Hulk as he just goes on a tear, and the audience cheers. This whole battle was so much fun to watch in just a theater filled of enthusiastic Avengers, comic book loving, just good movie loving fans. So much fun. Thor uses his power, but notice how this is Captain America. He is a changed man. When we first saw him, he was punching the bag in frustration. He had the line of other bags. Great visual, by the way. And that revealed where he was. He just was stuck. He didn't know how he fit into this time, into this group. And at that moment, we just saw where he is the commander of the Avengers now and tells everyone, here's how you fight it. Hulk, go smash. He's changed as a person. So we need to see how the frustrated hero in the beginning became this, now it feels right. Now he knows what to do. We need to have these moments, because the whole time he's kind of been in like a Buddha-like state. Yeah, I pretty much know what's going on. Yeah, I don't get these computer references and pop culture references, but I feel pretty okay. No, we need to see some frustration, and possibly through his conflict with Tony Stark, that's what allows the transformation to take place. We need the gradual stepping stones, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we don't lose anything. It can be done with the scenes that are already there if they're rewritten from the point of view of thematic change. Getting back to the aliens here, love how the Hulk just rips through this building, 1 hour, 55 minutes, 17 seconds, and is riding the alien, dragon, Chitauri, other creature. They are a little bit generic, so I do want to talk about how we could have had more powerful opponents. Now, the big surprise, the big tease in the Marvel fashion at the end of the film here is that Thanos will be the opponent in the next Avengers film, which thankfully Joss Whedon will be directing, and he has mentioned that it will be a more intimate film. It will be a smaller film in terms of focusing more on character. Probably what he wanted to do with this, but because now the expectations for Avengers 2 are different than they were for Avengers 1. This was the first time in recent movie memory something like this was attempted, possibly ever, where all these different films with individual characters were made, and then teased at the potential for having a film that combines all these characters into one super movie. The expectations of that super movie, as we've discussed, are so huge, and everyone is kind of nervous, even the fans, like, will it work? Now that it did, that it paid off in every way we ever wanted it to. It was a financial success. It was a critical success. It was a fan success. Now that that's happened, the pressure's off for the second one. Joss Whedon is trusted now, and it's pretty much guaranteed it's going to make money. So he could go off and make it like the most Shakespearean, drama-filled, zero-genre set-piece film ever, and make it how he wanted to make it, and it would still bank a ton of money. Word of mouth would possibly slow it down if it wasn't what we, the fans, expected. But he could make the film he wanted to make, and it would get that initial blast of hundreds of millions of dollars. The freedom is there to do that because now the trust is there. So it will be a more character-based, more intimate kind of film. That, of course, will balance genre and expectations and all that. But it might have more of what we're talking about here in terms of having each character have their journey. And that can happen within the scenes that already exist. The thing with having these generic opponents is that it just allows for more payoff for us, the audience, to cheer our characters. A great moment, by the way, when the Hulk punched Thor. They work together, and you feel like, oh, they're friends, and then the Hulk punches him off screen. So amazingly funny. It was ridiculous. The Galaga moment, the Hulk punching Thor, and then the Hulk beating Loki in the ragdoll style. Three of the biggest laughs in recent movie memory for me. I can't think of the last time I was in the theater, and it was just so much fun. Spontaneous laughter, such a joyous moment. Thanos, no doubt, in the sequel, will be a more focused opponent because he has a personality, he has an objective, he has goals, he has a backstory. The problem here with these opponents is that they don't really have a backstory. They don't have a bigger picture to them. Weird-looking other guy basically wants to give the Tesseract to some unknown force that's in control of him, but we don't really know what the goal of the Chitauri is. Okay, they want to rule the universe, but why? How do they view humanity? What is unique about them? They're too generic. It's a very easy design. Great cliche moment here. Loki catches the arrow, so he one-ups Hawkeye, but then the arrow's explosive. Then we have a twist, and he's like, oh, I'm not in control of this. So Loki is, again, he thinks he's in control, he thinks he's a badass, but he's really not. Best moment of the movie here. 2 hours, 15 seconds. Loki starts giving the Hulk the bad guy speech, and the Hulk just ragdolls him. And Whedon, no doubt, realizes the reaction it's going to have and allows for 5 or so seconds post Hulk walking off screen for the audience to calm down. The energy of that reaction just carries over, and it's just so powerful as an audience member. The endorphins are rushing. It's like, wow, there's so many surprises going on in this film. It's so great. What a just stupendous moment. Just so unexpected. So much fun. Love it. The design of these opponents, aside from the motivation, number one, when creating any kind of opposition, their motivation needs to be stated. And then add to that their character depth. By not really knowing anything about these Chitauri, this other, they just become typical bad guys. They just become a character in a cowboy film that just is dressed in black. It would be a lot more interesting if they had some kind of point of view and had some kind of agenda that was definitely against what the Avengers wanted, what humanity wanted, what S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted. We need to know, there's a Southwest Airlines advertisement, by the way, in the background, 2 hours, 1 minute, 57 seconds. Iron Man does a really cool thing where he flies through a dragon, or a Leviathan, as Joss Whedon was referring to them, and we get to follow him into the belly of the whale, and he just destroys it. Great hero moment there. Hawkeye jumping off of the building, turning, swinging into the building here at the glass, and he cries out in pain, so he's not impervious. He is a normal human being, just has really great skill when it comes to shooting arrows, and he's been trained as a soldier, so he's not necessarily a superhero. The generic nature of these characters probably is a result of the budget. By having them designed in a very similar way, it probably was easier to render it, probably quicker to turn it around. The thing about having Thanos be the opponent in the second film is that it really leads to an exciting possibility of an opponent who's smart, an opponent who's going to be active, and an opponent who we are going to be able to latch on to emotionally and have a perspective about. we don't necessarily feel anything towards these Chitauri other than it's target practice for the Avengers. The major opponents for the Avengers have been themselves throughout this film. And this is just a function, an opportunity for them to show that they are now together, that they are now on the same side, working together. And it can almost be like a simulation on some kind of a holodeck, where it's like, okay, Avengers team target practice, simulation 22, engage. And okay, now we just show how they're all fighting together. So they've come together as a team. That's really been the journey of this movie. We do have the X-File shadow government here ordering the destruction of the city with the missile. We get to see Nick Fury shoot down a craft that's taking off, but another one is launched. Another little gap in logic, because the How I Met Your Mother girl, who's Nick Fury's right-hand woman now, says that she's got a plane taking off. But why wouldn't it register that there were two planes taking off? She just says one, and at the same time the other one takes off. So a small little question to ask there. Again, not really trying to nitpick, but just to mention these things. And just, hey, there's always room to rewrite something. There's always room to just sharpen things up a bit. But again, this movie is about having fun and just enjoying it at the theater. And by far, this film for me was the most enjoyable movie this year, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years. Just wall to wall, just total fun, great characters, a lot of surprises, a lot of unexpected stuff going on. So here we have Tony Stark deciding to make the sacrifice. He's calling Pepper Potts. The cliche thing would have been to have her answer the phone and have some kind of emotional goodbye, take care of yourself, don't die, have kind of a cutesy line of make a promise to come back. But she doesn't answer it. That's even better. Now, there should have been a moment earlier where maybe Steve Rogers asked him, what are the things that are most important in your life? And then some kind of reference to Pepper Potts. And there should have been a moment of Steve talking with Tony here before he makes his sacrifice. Possibly a line referring to their verbal struggle earlier, where Tony Stark said, everything that's good about you came out of a bottle. And then Steve Rogers referenced that everything that you have is just basically technology. It's a suit. So reference that notion again. And as they see the missile coming in, maybe Stark and Rogers are with each other. And then Rogers looks at him and says, why are you looking at me? You're the one with the suit. Some kind of callback to that struggle with them. And then that propels Tony Stark forward to make this call. There's like this super alien base that the missile goes into. Again, a little more exploration of these opponents, and we can see what that means. It's a little bit generic again, and they are connected to all the other aliens. There's like the beehive thing going on, so you chop off the head and all the limbs go dead. It's okay. It's a decent conceit. I guess we'll go with it. It's not necessarily about the opponents anyways. It's the Avengers who have been their own opponents. This looks beautiful, by the way. How amazingly beautiful is that space footage where Stark, as Iron Man, is falling through it. He just makes it before it closes. This is going to be great here, as the Hulk is the one to save him. This is what endears us. The Hulk just totally steals the show here. Love this little moment now. Two hours, 7 minutes, 48 seconds. The Hulk saves him and throws him off. Is he breathing? And then the Hulk is going to yell and Stark will come into consciousness again. Tony really anchored the final sequence in emotion. The close-ups of his face as he was taking the missile through the portal and looking at the picture of Pepper Potts. So powerful, so just made your eyes well up with tears a little bit. Now imagine if that still is there, but we have the steps that lead up to it, because it kind of just gets there, but the dial hasn't been turned necessarily. We're missing a couple of moments with him and Rogers especially. It's through Rogers that Stark has been allowed to change his personality, to grow a little bit. We have the shawarma reference, and that's going to lead to one of the most surprising and unexpected teasers at the end of a Marvel superhero film, where usually it's very serious and it leads up to some kind of story promise. But here's just a nice minimalistic comedic moment at the very, very end as they're sitting in the shawarma joint, enjoying it and all quiet. Great comic book cover image here as Loki turns around, looks up, and sees them all standing over him. Again, we don't really know necessarily the limits of Loki's powers or Thor's powers, so by having them all here and Loki wakes up and he was just battered by the Hulk, what does that mean? What are the limits of his capabilities? What are his weaknesses? Great way to capture the larger universe, the bigger picture, how everyone is reacting to the knowledge that now the Avengers exist, that these fantastic people, these creatures are real. People are getting tattoos. There's a parade. The Tony Stark goatee. Skateboarding Captain America. So it's a lot of fun. It's a nice pan over all this, and we see what potentially is going to happen now that the Avengers have been let out into the public knowledge. And no doubt the X-Files shadow government's not happy about that, but as a leader, Nick Fury doesn't care. He's in control. So Nick Fury has his conflict going on with his shadowy government figures. They're wanting to put their plans into action. He's trying to keep control of things. He's the buffer between the Avengers and the powers that be. So we get to see Fury in his own battle. He's not necessarily a guy who's going to be out there in the field, but he has his own expertise. I'm not really sure what this glass containment device is that has the Tesseract, and then Loki is wearing the Bane gag mask. That implies that they don't want Loki to talk. And the more Loki talks, the more he can have power, be in control of others. It's funny because throughout the film, it was everything but his words that were threatening. He was much more, again, of a physical presence. And now they gag him at the end. And it doesn't really allow for an emotional resolution between him and Thor. So that relationship could have possibly been resolved a little bit more in terms of the verbal nature of it. But he turns the little dial. I don't know why that thing works that way, but okay, we don't need the explanation. Just buy it. We're having a fun time. Don't think about it too much. We have the resolution between Hill, that is the How I Met Your Mother actress. Her character's name here is Hill, and Nick Fury. They've established their relationship here. We're getting all the Avengers going off and resolving. An important thing in any film is that as we've seen characters go through conflict, have these emotional struggles, we now want to feel the effects of all these struggles. What is it that each character has learned? How have they been changed? What have they gotten from this series of events, from this journey that they've been on? Here we have Tony Stark, Pepper Potts, and they now, in hologram style, bring up the current Stark Tower, and then they push it away. They take the parts away, as if to say that it's not really about Tony Stark anymore. And then we have a great final shot as the Stark name, just the A is left. And that's that symbolic representation that Tony Stark is now okay being part of a team. It's not just about him anymore. These elements are all here, and in some ways they could just be tweaked a little bit more so that their impact could be that much more powerful. The music here, again, does what it needs to do. It has a very patriotic, a very heroic, larger-than-life blockbuster movie feel to it, but it's almost like it's a meshing of all these characters together. In other films, again, like Star Wars, like RoboCop, mentioned Braveheart, those are films that I react to when I hear their scores. Take a moment and think about what are the scores that really stick with you. Batman, of course, the Hans Zimmer version. In a movie where you have characters that potentially have their own individual scores, their own individual sound, what happens when they all come together and now try to work as a team? What is the soundtrack going to sound like? What's that music about? We each have our own music, and when we join with someone else who has their own music, what is that combination like? The trick is in always finding the balance. So the music is solid here, really like it a lot. One question would be, is it the John Williams classical kind of signature that when you hear this music you think Avengers? Alan Silvestri also, he's done so many amazing scores, so this is nowhere near an attempt to knock him. Super respect, appreciate, and love the work of Alan Silvestri. Just kind of pointing out how does it work when it comes to our memory of the Avengers. This guy definitely looks like Doctor Doom. Skeletor is to court death. 2 hours, 15 minutes, 46 seconds. Thanos is revealed. So that is the story teaser tie-in for the next film. And we're going to get a nice comedic payoff at the end of this as the Avengers team has gone to eat some shawarma. And they're in a shop that's been decimated and the guy's sweeping in the background. Great little comedic moment. And if you notice, watch the entire time, watch Mark Ruffalo. He is on the verge of cracking up a couple times. So you could just imagine how many takes they had to have to get that just right. But it's so fun because it's like, well, all these superheroes, what would they do afterwards? They'd be hungry, right? So the last thing to clarify would be the opponent of this film. The opponent in any film is really important. Absolutely important, because the opponent allows the main character to face their fears, to be pushed out of their comfort zone, and to move towards becoming the person they are meant to become, move towards their destiny, move towards their hero's journey. The adventure they are currently a part of, the adventure that has chosen them and that they have accepted the invitation to being a part of, is one in which, by the end of, they will not be the same as they were when they started. It is the opponent that challenges them, and the opponent somehow must be one that brings up issues, conflicts, and struggles from within that are preventing the main character from becoming who they need to be currently. Think back to your favorite films, and I'm betting that the opponent in those films has been a memorable one. It can be Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It can be the Wicked Witch in Wizard of Oz, Darth Vader or the Emperor in Star Wars, Agent Smith in The Matrix, Hannibal Lecter, Dick Jones and Clarence Boddicker in RoboCop. Great movies have great opponents. Of course, The Dark Knight. And interestingly, If we look at the recent Batman films, we have Ra's al Ghul, we have the Joker, and then Bane. And the one that stands out the most from those three, probably the Joker, then Ra's al Ghul, and then Bane. The reason being, we understand where they're coming from. We understand what makes them tick. We understand what motivates their actions. Ra's al Ghul wants to cleanse and destroy Gotham because it's become too corrupt. The Joker wants to prove that chaos is really the truest order and that current civilized society is just a momentary illusion held together by the most delicate of threads, that if one is pulled, then it all falls apart. Bane is basically an extension of Ra's al Ghul, and the problem with The Dark Knight Rises, as we'll see as we do a commentary for that in the future, will be that Bane stops being Bane and stops following his passions and desires and his beliefs after he takes over Gotham. The last 45 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises is pretty much Bane-free, and what seems to be a build-up towards facing him and defeating him is kind of dissipated. It's a little bit of a letdown. Whereas the Joker was the person Batman had to face in The Dark Knight, and Ra's al Ghul was the person that Batman had to face in Begins. Here, the Chitauri, by being generic, really don't add anything to the struggle of the Avengers. One notion that potentially could have been explored, if we're going to go with the hive mind, which isn't a horrible idea, and it's really convenient because there's a ton of these guys, so the minute you destroy the base, you destroy them all. One idea that could have been explored would be that earlier, when Loki is captured, he potentially reveals that the way the Chitauri operate is through a hive system. They're kind of like the Borg from Star Trek. And that hive system is actually superior and preferable to the individuality of the Avengers, because the struggle here is the Avengers as individuals coming together and working together. And Captain America is a representative of the idea of unifying together. He's not exactly hive-minded like these aliens to the extreme, but he's definitely not individualistic and selfish. So Captain America is this middle ground. Loki could talk about how this alien Chitauri hive mind race is much more optimal because they don't have personal impulses that get in the way. They operate seamlessly together. They have a unified goal. They have a purpose. And he can comment on the problem of what's hindering the Avengers from coming together, which could also be like a lighter commentary on kind of the world that they're in. And it doesn't need to be heavy-handed. It doesn't need to be 15 minutes of exposition. It can be born out of drama and conflict and be earned through the fighting and through interrogation. It can come from the drama. Let's just keep that this race looks the way they do. It just is easier on the budget, that they all kind of have a similar look, and it would make sense for their culture if, again, they are hive-minded and all connected and not really distracted and thinking about themselves. They're thinking about the bigger picture in their world and their culture. They represent something that perhaps has been lost a little bit, that Captain America represents, and that the Avengers need to learn. Thor can bring this back to Asgard. Maybe Asgard a long time ago knew this. Odin kind of thinks about this. And by fighting this opponent, now this opponent isn't generic. This opponent represents something that the main characters need to embrace, that they need to learn from. That the problem, too, maybe with being hive-minded, is that if the wrong idea gets into the collective, now everyone's working together for evil purposes. So there's something to be said for individuality. And that's what Captain America is. Captain America is the balance between the individuality of Tony Stark and the other Avengers who want to just do their own thing on the one extreme. Then on the other extreme, we have the super hive-minded alien creatures. And in the middle is this nice balance of you can work for the greater good but still be who you are. And that's the struggle that Avengers is really about. So just a scene or two tweaked in a certain way where we understand the Chitauri a little bit more. We get what makes them tick. We get why they're fighting this war, how they view the individuals of the human race, why they think that collectivism is superior. It's a little bit of a pull from the Borg from Star Trek again, but that's okay. You can take things that exist and tweak them enough to make them unique for the moment, because it's the emotional growth of these characters that's important, and the coming together of the Avengers team. That's how you transform the genericness of these opponents and add a little bit emotional weight to them. And so then it's the individual skill of a Hulk, of a Hawkeye, that now can take out the seemingly beneficial link that these collective foes have. And it can show that if a warrior doesn't have the individuality, the creativity, the spontaneity, that they have to follow kind of the hive mind, and the hive mind could get a little bit weak in terms of its imagination, and it's not able to counteract the fighting that these Avengers are able to do because they're still their own people. So that's the struggle. That's what this really could have been about, and fighting these aliens could have just been more than just a target practice, than just a fun visual. It could have really been the Avengers coming together, discovering that there is power in unity, and there is power in separateness, and finding a nice balance for that. So that could have been a nice rewrite. The opponent always can add to the growth of the main character, so never discount the opponent. Never just have them be something that just needs to be there, not really thought through. Always think through the opponents, because they're intimately related to what's going on within the main characters, within the emotional state of the heroes that we follow. So with that, this movie has breezed by. It's almost 2.5 hours, and it moved quickly. It did so many things right, and this commentary is by no means just an attempt to nitpick and say, oh, this is a crappy movie or something. It's a fun movie. It does everything we wanted it to do and goes beyond it. It surprises us in a lot of ways. This commentary is much more, here's screenplay structure, here's dramatic structure, and let's check out the Avengers and see if there are moments for enhancement. This is really about upgrading or adding to, tweaking some things, throwing out some ideas, and seeing what the movie would be like if these ideas were implemented. If Vegas was taking bets on whether or not the Avengers would please the critics, the fans, and Hollywood in terms of the box office, probably could have took a lot of bets against it. But Joss Whedon, we have to give amazing props to everyone involved in this. The filmmakers on every level, from the editing, the cinematography, to the CGI, just all the talent that went into this film. It's a really great movie, and it shows that it's really all about character, and that character informs set pieces, and set pieces are an expression of character. And when those two combine really well together, we can have powerful filmmaking. We can have Oscar caliber filmmaking, all about just knowing what the structure is, asking the right questions, where the characters are going on the outside and on the inside, and then just having the freedom, hopefully, and the courage and taking the risk to make that happen. So with a couple of tweaks, these journeys for each character could have been even more delineated. They're there, but they're a little bit hidden. They're a little bit buried beneath the rubble of the action set pieces because, again, of our expectations.
Such a great movie. That's probably like the 10th time I've seen it, and it still breezes by every time. But as we discussed during the commentary, there is room for embellishment and improvement in terms of what could have been the drama of the character relationships. I'm really eager to hear your thoughts about the ideas that were brought forth, so please leave them in the comments section. The balance between entertainment and art is one of human drama and genre set piece. The Avengers comes close to reaching an equilibrium, and with a couple tweaks here and there, it really could have been nominated for something this February. Leave your thoughts regarding your expectations for the Avengers. When you were going in, what did you want the film to deliver on, and did it? Thanks very much for hanging out for this movie night. The next installment will be Ridley Scott's Prometheus. In the meantime, remember that StoryCorp, aka Hollywood, always gives us more of what we pay for, so let's choose our movies wisely. And as always, long live good movies.